Several years ago, I was involved in a notional debate with Arthur C. Clarke. What had happened was that a friend of mine, Michael Benson, had done this book called Beyond, where he had these incredible images from the photographic legacy of space probes. And it turned out that and it was all in the public domain. This was a very funny story. This guy was stuck in Slovenia because he'd fallen in love with a Slovenian woman, and he was losing his mind. And he would stay at night surfing the web, and surfing in particular all this imagery from NASA. And it turned out there were millions and millions of photographs, which most of the time had been used by scientists to look for particular things, but hadn't really been looked at aesthetically. So it was interesting aesthetically. And he just started finding these incredible things. And he gave this bouquet of amazing images to Arthur C. Clarke. And Arthur C. Clarke commented that, this is fantastic, that we were seeing the beginnings of Silica sapiens as opposed to Homo sapiens, and that it was that this was that it will have turned out that the function of human beings in geological time was this little moment where stones and sand couldn't organize itself, so they needed this little kind of parasite or human beings to do it. And once it got done, it was great, and now it was it. And here we were seeing machines that were seeing the world, and you didn't need human beings anymore, and that was great. I'm a little bit parodying what he said, but not quite. That's pretty much what he said. And then my job was to say, oh, I don't know, that's right. and I'm trying. I've often used in a lot of my writing about the stuff this image of Nicholas of Cusa. Nicholas of Cusa was this wonderful number mystic in the late medieval period. He was the Archbishop of Cologne, but he was mainly he wrote a wonderful book called Learned Ignorance. Seems appropriate here, and he was he was kind of in an argument with the Thomists at the time about how to get to God and to parody, or not parody, but to way oversimplify. One way to get to God would be if you cataloged all of God's creation, every single bit of God's creation, every single animal, every single blade of grass, and so on and so on, you would have gotten to God. And Cusa, who was more of a Platonist, said, well, that can't be right. He said it's like the difference between a circle and an n-sided polygon inside the circle. That you start with 3 sides, and then 4 sides, and then 5 sides. And by the time you get to a million sides, it's very, very close to being a circle. But in fact, it's very, very far from being a circle. Because a circle has only one line, and you've got a million lines. The circle has no angles, and you've got this clunky thing that's all angles, and so forth. And his point at that point was that you had to make the leap, which he coined a phrase. He called it the leap of faith, from the chord to the arc. And that was as difficult from the beginning as at the end. And it was a qualitatively different kind of thing. And it was part of what I was trying to get at with that the difference of the experience, I guess in a certain sense, the difference of what you guys are doing from what David Hockney is doing. Is it a circle as opposed to a million bits in some way? So does that make sense? And can you imagine computers getting to a point where they achieve the circle?
All right. One of the things you're saying kind of bothers me. Okay.
I was just laying it out there to be run over.
I didn't know where you were going to go with all that, but one of the things I'm trying to get across in my book is this notion that digital is somehow an approximation is wrong. That somehow we've left out the in-between bits. It's wrong. That somehow we're just getting closer and closer, but not there. Mm-hmm. That's not how digital works. Mm-hmm. How digital works is this beautiful theorem called the sampling theorem. It says if you sample at the appropriate rate a continuum, you can take those discrete elements around the world for decades, and at some later time, you can reconstruct in a very well-defined way what the original continuum was. You've lost nothing. Digital's not about getting the dots close enough that suddenly it becomes continuous. It is continuous. What you're looking at up there is continuous. The little blobs of color overlap and form a continuum. Now, it's really hard to apply the theorem absolutely correctly. There's some infinities involved, but damn close. Yeah, pesky things.
Can I sort of turn your question to Peter and to Google, actually? Because there's another way of interpreting that critique at a more abstract level than the one of pixels and sampling. Because what you're talking about really are concepts and understanding. And that's, I think, where things start to really get interesting, vis-a-vis your question about whether we're here mostly as assemblers for the next species that's gonna own the planet. I mean, learning algorithms are also a form of interpolation, and when the methods that we're using involve taking every frame of all of the YouTube videos that Google has and using the sorts of massive computing power that you were showing and massive data, I have to believe that what is actually being done bears no relationship whatsoever with the way in which a person develops insight and intelligence. And we know this because an 18-month-old, or for that matter, an 8-month-old, already knows what a cat is. And if you stack up all of the frames of experience that 8-month-old has had up until that point, it's different in many ways. It's an active exploration as opposed to just a passive sequence of images. It's not labeled data, but also it's a continuum of first-person experience as opposed to just the sort of massive. And Google has taken that approach in a lot of different domains. Translate is similar, right? You use a statistical approach in which you try to fill up a very, very high-dimensional distribution of phrases in parallel languages. And obviously that's not the way we talk, we think, or we learn concepts or language. So do you think that this is the path, or do you think that this is just a hack and it's all going to be yesterday's news in a year's time?
So you're certainly right that that some of the techniques we use are very different than what a person can do. I think we're doing the look under the lamppost for the keys approach of saying, well, what do we have that we know how to do well, and what do we not know how to do well? So we do know how to do really well how to store and access and process billions of pieces of information. So let's do that and see how far it gets us. That's the easy thing to do. We recognize that the harder thing to do is to learn from one example rather than to learn from a million examples. We think that in order to get there, you have to have something to build on. So I think you're exactly right. You need this first-person experience in order to say, now I can learn in one shot something new and add it to what I already know. But you can't add that until you've got something to add it to. And we said, how do we get to the point where we can start doing that realistic learning? Well, this is the way to do it. So in one part of what we're doing is aiming towards that goal of being able to do realistic learning after you've built up a baseline. That's what you need. Another part is to say, well, not everything we do has to be theoretically interesting. Some of it is just practical of, what can we do this quarter that will give us the best results? And then I think another part of it is to say, well, what good is it to duplicate a child? We know how to do that. I had my part in two. My wife did more of the work, but together we know how to do that technology. And what's more interesting is what sort of partnership can we have? How can a computer with its strengths and a person with their strengths work together? And I think there's a lot of interest in that now. We're seeing these issues of income inequality and high unemployment and so on. And I think that is a problem, and it's a problem that is in part amplified by technology, and we'll have to learn how to deal with that. How people and machines can work together. You know, I noticed there's a new TV show out now that's a cop buddy show. And you always have the tension there. You know, there's the man and the woman, the black guy and the white guy, or the southern guy and the hip urban guy, or whatever. But this time it's a human and a robot. And I think that really is, you know, the type of partnership for the times that we have to deal with. That many people's jobs is going to be working with machines, so that as a partnership, you're better than either one alone.
Dialectically, the problem is that the more you use the model that you're using of what learning is like, the more Arnie Duncan and the testing regime are treating actually human students that way. And you end up spending all your time treating the first testing and teaching to the test and so forth and so on. That is acting as if the students themselves were robots, and I guess the critique I would make is that the more you don't take into account the things that machines can't do, the more you're going to treat people as machines. And the way that shows up, by the way, in terms of Facebook and so forth, is you get the complete erosion of what words mean. I have 50,000 people who like me. I friended so-and-so. I mean, these words cease to have any meaning whatsoever and completely miss the point of what a friendship is, or what it is to like somebody. I very much respect what they're doing, but it worries me to some extent too. So here you go. And now I'm going to be told, well, I'm wrong.
No, I just wanted to, I think I'm addressing your original question.
Okay, go for it.
Okay. And that is, if you'll think about that picture I put up of what looked like Brad Pitt but wasn't, it was driven by Brad Pitt. We haven't a clue how to replace actors. In my business, we call...
What do you mean by it was driven by? People may not know what you mean.
Well, we don't know how to make a computer act. The only thing we know how to do is have an actor or an animator, they're actually the same kind of artist, drive what's on the screen. You know, run the controls to manipulate the facial expressions and do the things that make us...
The word anima means soul.
Right.
An animator is an ensoler.
That's right. An actor does the same thing. They make you believe that, in the case of an actor, his body or her body is somebody else other than themselves. And an animator makes you believe that a stack of polygons is conscious and feels pain and knows how to outfox the coyote. So I have been a fan of artificial intelligence since I was a kid. But I'm also, what I'm trying to say is it still takes a leap of faith to get there. A lot of computer scientists have it, and I basically have it, I think. I mean, we're existence proof that a machine can do it, but...
For what?
Be conscious.
What was that you just did? Do that over again. We are what?
We're existence proofs that a machine...
This is a machine?
I think so. I don't see any evidence otherwise.
Of course.
Is an existence proof. We just don't know how to build one that does it, or we don't understand how to do it. So I have this faith that that's true, but we haven't a clue how it works.
Now we're going to fight. Okay. When I had this fight with Arthur C. Clarke, which again, I mean, you don't fight with Arthur C. Clarke, he wins. But my last expiring sigh, as I was smothered into the dirt, was that something that no machine will ever be able to experience is awe, is marvel, in the following sense, that you by definition have to be contingent, have to be puny, have to be mortal, have to be all those things to experience wonder and marvel and awe. And I don't think that in that book Beyond, the Pioneer spacecraft was experiencing awe at those things, and I don't think it ever could be made to experience awe. Oh, you bet I'm not a machine. How many people here are machines? Well, that's okay. The twins are. I should ask of the artists here who is a machine, who's not, and how many people are not. Yeah.
It's a statement of faith, one way or the other, right? It's none of us really know at this point.
Oh, I know.
No, you don't. You just believe that.
Likewise.
I'm telling you, I'm very unsure about it, but all my instincts say yes, that's got to be it. Even though intuitively I want to believe that we're special, and it's not so. But
Blaise, what do you think?
well, we're examples of machines, just for starters.
If you define it that way, then
Well, no, it's a hard thing to define. I mean, it's something that operates in the world, and it works the same way every time. You know.
That's precisely what we don't do.
Yeah, we do.
This time I did that to you. The other time I didn't do that to you.
Well, no computer works the same way twice ever. We don't either. There's just too many things going on. The pathways that can be spelled out with our timelines are of infinite variety. That machines do that too.
No machines. I don't. This is a debate that I'm surprised to be having with you, Ren, because, you know, religion is a very sinister thing, and that really is the position that you're taking. You're taking the position of a dualist.
No. You are. Okay. You are following Cartesian notion that there's the body and that there was an animation, you know, and so and that we can analyze all of life through mechanical kinds of constructions and so forth. It breaks up at that moment. By the way, if we were having a different lecture, I would tell you that the anatomy lesson by Rembrandt, Descartes was in the audience for that event. And that you are present at the moment where it delaminates there, back there. But I am precisely, it's interesting, I am not, John Berger has this great line, and I'm now going to introduce a concept that we didn't use at all today, but which is really the key concept, which is John Berger at one point says that storytelling approaches the condition of metaphysics, by which we haven't been talking about narrative. We were talking all about all these technical steps, but what makes all these things move is storytelling. And storytelling is soulful. And I don't know what that means exactly, but I know it can't be covered by machines.
I don't think that any of us disagree about storytelling or about animus.
Anima.
About soul, or anything.
Right,
no, or about soul interpreted that way. But I think that you know, it's if you are a neuroscientist, then it's difficult to hold the belief that those things don't emerge from the physical operation of the brain. It's difficult to see somebody who's had a stroke or who has suffered from brain damage and not come to the conclusion that all of those things that we think are special and that involve metaphysics and that involve story and that involve subjectivity and consciousness and experience and so on don't emerge from the physical processes of the brain. I mean, I think if you don't believe that, then it's like not believing in global warming. I think it's an error of that level.
Yeah.
What do machines desire? We desire, and we try to go after it, and sometimes we get distracted. What do machines desire?
Well, the same things. I mean,
The question up there was, what do machines desire?
I mean, I have a feeling it's this word machine that's off-putting. And we're not talking about it's made out of transistors and silicon and hard edges, because again, I say, as far as I can tell, we're machines. We know how we're built, and we know getting to know more and more and more what the wiring pattern of this brain is, and there's just no evidence of anything else that can be hauled in to argue. Excuse me? It comes out of however this works, which we do not understand. But I'm just unwilling to go.
By the way, this is there is an incredibly interesting debate going on around Thomas Nagel's book Mind and Cosmos, which is all about this. That Thomas, Thomas Nagel, who is arguably one of the greatest philosophers in America, has gotten everybody pissed off because he is a what? He slipped up is how it's been interpreted, and it's very, very interesting. Go look it up online. Thomas Nagel, Mind and Cosmos. The debate around that book is this debate, and whether there is something. And by the way, I do think this has to do a little bit with coming back to Hockney. No, it does. No, it does in the sense that I think how a painter, how an artist is approaching this, I think, is on my side of the debate and not your side of the debate. But I may be wrong.
Well, I don't know the answer to can computers be conscious and how are humans conscious, but I think we'll make progress on that over the decades and centuries. And I can tell you what the answer is going to be.
Yeah.
The answer is going to be, that was the wrong question. That we think we understand what this idea of consciousness is, but we're going to come to an understanding of, no, that wasn't what it was.
It's interesting that Colin McGinn has the argument that the reason we can't answer is because the human brain is incapable of formulating that question correctly. That it is that in the same way that human legs are incapable of jumping a mile, a human brain cannot formulate that question.
Well, I would believe it.
Blaise is losing respect for me by the minute. Have you watching this? He used to think I was interesting.
Right. If you restrict the human to doing it by themselves, then I think you're right that there are big barriers which they can't go beyond. But just as with the jumping and running and so on, if you allow them to use outside help like airplanes and rockets.
So by the way, do you think that
we use
the
outside help,
use
right?
of help of computers will help us understand what consciousness is?
Yeah, certainly. And I mean, we've been doing that for a lot longer, right? Civilization was built because we understood language was our first big breakthrough, and then writing so that language would persist. And so we offload from our mind into this external storage our thoughts. So we don't have to keep everything in our mind at one time. We can put them someplace else, refer back to them, and our minds become larger because most of our minds are now stored in the world rather than inside our head.
Let me shift just for one quick question as long as we have. And I think, by the way, is Colin here, by the way? Yes. He is, okay, because in a few minutes, I think we're going to begin to wrap this up. And Colin wanted to say if you were over there. Oh, there you are. Okay, so we'll bring that. But just Jaron Lanier at one point writes that reality is that thing that cannot be represented to completion, by which I think he means that no representation, no matter how many bits, no matter how, can get to the fullness of reality. And now came back completely, this is almost a denouement after all this, but I don't want to believe that a digital representation of weeds going by on the side of a car can be more beautiful, more stunning, more immersive, more awe-inspiring than weeds going by on a car. But damn it, what's going on up there? You have these 12 video screens that are, and they are just so much more, it's a little bit similar to the Pear Blossom Highway. It's just so much more vivid than reality in some kind of, does that make sense to you?
I certainly enjoyed it, if that's what you mean.
I mean,
Somebody's brain, not everybody's.
So, I mean, I'm now talking about the picture that's there, yeah. So you would imagine that there are people who would prefer to be going by, looking out the side of the car and just look. Yeah, maybe.
If you have allergies.
He says, if you have allergies. Well, listen, I want to say a few things. By the way, thank you all. And I mainly was doing that to push your buttons. I'm not quite. It was very funny, by the way, because I gave a lecture at the Santa Fe Institute a while back, and what's the name of the head of the research there? I forget his name. Anyway, because he says, I mean, you do understand that it is all inside the brain. There's nothing but the brain. I assume you understand that, yes? As if I said the wrong thing at that moment, I would be hurled off the mountaintop bodily. But anyway, I want to say a few very quick things, and then one last quote, and then I wish David were here for this. He, by the way, he's just getting tired these days, but we have videotaped everything, and are hoping that he will be able to. I think he will really appreciate some of this, and I know he appreciated our taking the time to do this. I appreciate your taking the time to be here. I very much appreciate all of our panelists, who I think should get a round of applause. I've mentioned it before a few times. The technical crew is amazing, and they've done a really great job. Renee and Richard, and all the other people who've been involved. I really want to thank all of you. The director of the museum, Colin Bailey, will be coming up here in a second for a few last words. I thought I would just close with a passage. There was a 12-year-old girl at the time who, this was shown to me. There was a pop quiz in her class, and the question was asked, why is the human on Earth? You have 15 minutes to answer that question. 12-year-old kid, and she writes, I believe that there is, despite the fact that we humans have done so much damage to the world, a reason for our existence on this planet. I think we are here because the universe, with all its wonder and balance and logic, needs to be marveled at. And we are the only species to our knowledge that has the ability to do so. We are the one species that does not simply accept what is around us, but also asks why it's around us and how it works. We are here because without us here to study it, the amazing complexity of the world would be wasted. And finally, we are here because the universe needs an entity to ask why it is here. 12. No, I didn't say 4, 12. Yeah. I mean, it took Kant like 3 volumes to get to that point. But anyway, but when I read that, I think a lot about what David's doing, but also a lot about what all of us here are doing and all of us in the room are doing. But so I thought we'd end with that, and then with that, Colin, perhaps you have a few things you wanted to say. So thank you all. Yeah, we can go back down there.
This has been unlike any symposium I've attended. That is, and I'm delighted that so many wide-ranging topics were discussed. We're all now familiar with Moore's law, which I wasn't before I attended. What I would say is that thank you for coming. Thank you for these multiple approaches. For those who are here, use our collections as your units. Store them, see them, return to them. We cover thousands of years between the two museums, and in a way we have David's wall, Great Wall, that stops with Cézanne and Cubism, but in a way, perhaps today we're thinking about the walls, digitally, visually, virtually, that might come later, and how artists use this resource, and computer scientists, and the world, the tech world that we are so eager to bond with, use our collections, use our institutions, use our works of art, and but remembering too that the unimaginable leap is really still why we all come here, I think, to look at different areas in the collections. And David Hockney's unimaginable leaps will continue, I think, for many years to come. There's a reception after this. Please enjoy the exhibition. It's up until the middle of January. And thank you all. And thank you, Lawrence, for being the compare and the motivator of such an interesting couple of days. Thanks, everyone.